My name is Hartley Dagador, and you're listening to Wake Up with Wonder podcast, where my daddy shares with you the gift of wonder.
Thank you so much to my beautiful daughter Hartley for that lovely introduction. I am your host, Jason B. Godoy, and that's right, this is the Wake Up with Wonder podcast, the show where we dive into the power of wonder, and not only do we explore the power of wonder, but we explore the wonders within ourselves and how wonderful we are as human beings. This is going to be an interview episode where I sit down with a friend and we discuss all the adversity he's faced and how wonder has helped him to overcome that adversity on his way to graduating with his PhD. I'm not going to take any more of your time, and I hope you guys enjoy today's show. All right, so I am sitting here with Mr. Tawaun Lucas. Tawaun is a recent PhD graduate from Stanford University. He happened to be voted the student speaker at his commencement ceremony. He was the founder of the Diversity Center on campus. He was the founder of the very first Black student organization for bioscience. And you know what, Tawaun, I'm just happy to have you here, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad you invited me on. I'm happy to be here as well.
Awesome, man. So this is the Wake Up with Wonder podcast. I don't know if you've heard about it at all, but it's a mental health, personal development podcast. And that's why I thought you'd be a great fit, because your recent thesis was on mental resiliency and how the amygdala affects that, right? Mm-hmm. What is the amygdala? Can you give us a simple definition?
The amygdala?
The amygdala. I call it the amygdala so I don't forget, but it's the amygdala.
The amygdala. The amygdala is this nucleus that you have in your brain. The nucleus is like this cluster of cells. And it's really the emotion center of your brain. So usually when you're feeling like, angry or frustrated or something like that, it usually originates in the amygdala. People call it the primitive portion of like your brain. So animals who are like largely aggressive, they have larger amygdalas. Animals that are like less aggressive, they have smaller amygdalas.
I see. So is that why if I do a journal session, after I call it release the rage, after I just yell, punch the punching bag for 2 minutes until I can't breathe, is that why I'm like more clear and more focused? Because the amygdala was like kind of activated and then deactivated?
Yeah, and also with that, your brain is also releasing a whole bunch of endorphins to make you feel good as well. So when you're punching that punching bag, you're releasing things like dopamine and serotonin, all of those happy neurotransmitters. That is like makes you feel good to get that sort of like exercise high. Right? I don't know if you felt that before, like after you work out really hard. And that's all those neurotransmitters rushing in after you do those workouts.
Cool. Makes sense. So I definitely want to talk to you about what you've learned in terms of resilience, but I think leading up to that, we should talk about your personal resilience journey that you've had throughout your lifetime. First off, when did that start for you? When did you first start experiencing adversity as a kid or an adult, whenever that was?
Yeah, I think the first time I felt adversity, I felt down, probably happened when I was about 6 years old. And it really happened. So I grew up in Compton, California. So there was a lot of things that happened around me and around my environment. And basically someone that I knew at the park, that I had no like affiliation to them. I would see them at the park all the time. Someone that I knew at that park had gotten shot. And I was just like, wow, this is like something that's really hard. I felt bad because they would be around, like playing with the kids, like showing us like how to, hit a baseball or like shoot a basket, because we would always be playing at the park, and they would just be hanging out at the park. Yeah. And when we like got there and like, we were all at the park hanging around, and someone, shot him, then I was just like, whoa, this is a very this is a serious thing. And at that point I sort of like, I never really like felt scared of my community or anything like that, or scared of my neighborhood, but it was just like, oh dang, like this is something that can happen to me if I'm not careful. Right? Yeah.
And I'm assuming he was like another black man that you saw get shot?
Yeah.
So it probably hit home even more because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy, man. So it started as young as 6 years old. It's funny because obviously we all have our own personal battles of adversity, and they're all different. but we can't really see each other's battles that they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think of when I first met you. So I had the privilege of knowing you in high school.
Yeah.
It's really cool. You and your brother.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Tawaun happens to be a twin, and his twin brother is Dawan.
Yeah.
So I'm sure being a twin in itself brings all sorts of adversity and mental resilience challenges that you have to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing about having a twin is that you always have someone to help you, like, get through things, because they're probably experiencing a lot of the same stuff that you're experiencing, right? But also the bad thing is you have someone that's always there as well, right?
Yeah.
So depending on how you look at it, so at times there's like really good things, but you also have someone to fight with all the time, too.
I see. So it could be positive, it could be negative.
Yeah. I think it's generally positive.
That's good. So back to what I was saying, I had the privilege of knowing you and your brother in high school, and I couldn't see any struggles that you were going through. You couldn't see any struggles that I was going through, and I just wanted to share with you my initial experience of you in high school,
Mm-hmm.
man. So, and obviously this is not true, but at the time this was true for me.
Yeah.
Dude, you were a track star. You had a twin brother. You were super smart. You were in like some of the accelerated programs.
Mm-hmm.
So it just looked like you had it going on, bro. It looked like you had everything going on for you, man.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is, like, I don't know, like a lot of people, I guess it was like more well known, but I like used the fake address to like go to our school, right?
see.
To like to get to that point, because I thought, my parents thought I would do better there.
So that was your way
In my
to
home school.
get out of like Compton, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then the fact that I think that I think I was more scared of like ending up like people from my neighborhood a lot more, that I wanted to like, at least be driven enough. Like I didn't get the best grades, but I was like, I know that I could probably like work hard, and if I was going to this school like out of my district, a lot of people like, from this district usually, make it to college and make it to, pursuing their like athletic dreams a lot further. And so I was like, I just need to be here and like do this and focus on this a lot more.
So the environment is really what allowed you to succeed.
Yeah, I think that was like it for sure.
So your home environment, was it like when you would leave school and go home in high school, was it totally different? Was it like night and day? Like, was it stressful?
Oh, yeah. I think that what a lot of people who were, we weren't the only ones who were like using fake addresses to get to Lakewood. But it was very different, right? From the people that would be around, from like being able to like walk on the streets like late at night. So like I would catch the bus and I would like, after like football practice, we would be late, like especially like in the winter when it got dark early. I would need to either like call someone and like come pick me up, because it would be tough to try to like get home to like
There's no
before I get
buses.
home. Yeah. Right. So that was just like, it was just like a lot of extra things on top of like all the schooling and like sports stuff that I had to do to be cautious about.
So you had to kind of be much more mindful for your, like yourself, but you also had to plan ahead, and you had to like worry about other obstacles that most people didn't have to worry about.
That I think a lot of people who were, like lived right around the corner, that also went to school, just did not have to worry about.
Yeah, I could just walk home at that time. Granted, it was like a 2-3 mile walk, which in high school seems like a lot. But like I didn't have to worry about, walking home if it being dark and not feeling safe. So that's definitely, thank you for sharing that struggle.
Yeah.
It's a unique struggle. When was the first time you experienced adversity in terms of like racism and racial segregation?
Oh, I mean, the very first time, maybe when I was, I got called a nigger at, seen my parents get called niggers in our family, get called when I was probably like 6 or something. We were just like,
back to 6 years old.
I don't know. I know I was young, and I know that I wasn't in middle school, and I was still going to school in Compton, and I think we were at the mall. We were actually at the Lakeville Mall. And I think my mom, I don't know, it's kind of blurry because I didn't know exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
But I think my mom got into someone at the parking lot. Either we got there, we took their spot, or they were waiting on the spot, or something. And they were just very, very upset. And that was like the first time where I really felt like aggression because of like our race and because just what they were saying. And I was like, wow, like why are they so mad? Why are they attacking that portion? Like anyone could have like took your spot. And it seems like now you're just more mad because we're black.
Yeah.
Right. That was like the first time I experienced it, but it wouldn't be the last. I think the first time like a police officer pulled a gun out on me, I was 11.
Wow,
and I was
young.
and luckily, I mean, it could have ended like very badly. It was just me and my brothers. But luckily, we have an older brother as well. And he's 7 years older than us. So at that point, I think he was a little bit more aware. But as an 11-year-old, you're not.
Yeah, but he was practically like an adult. He's starting to see.
He's starting to see things that were happening, right? He's been through more experience. So when you're like when I was 11, I wasn't aware that police officers will probably like kill me if I make the wrong move, right? So when they came up on us and with their guns drawn and asking us to like see our hands, I'm just like what do you mean? Like we're just here, but like having my older brother there, just like no, like listen to him, like put your hands up, like even though we're not doing anything wrong.
So it could have been totally different if your brother wasn't there.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Right, and you hear stories when people getting caught alone, like little boy Tamir Rice, right? He was just playing by himself with the toy gun.
Yeah. Police
show up, shoot him, So that could have definitely been me if I was by myself, or me and my brother. But
it's unfortunate. It sounds like somebody, a God, a divine force, whatever you want to call it, somebody was looking out for you.
I definitely agree with that.
Got some guardian angels over there.
I definitely agree with that.
So in terms of experiencing racism and like segregation, did that ever happen to you during your educational journey, whether it was high school, middle school, college, graduate school?
Yeah. I think that people don't want to face or say it out loud more than anything. How like incredibly like prejudiced the like academic system is. And science in general, I think, is extremely racist. There are things that I'm not saying that like there are not good people who like do science. Obviously, I'm a scientist, and I have mentors who are scientists who like are more than willing to help me. But I just knowing like how I had to get there, and the lost opportunity from others that look like me who could not have made it there, in similar ways. So I think that so I would say that in terms of academia, it's set up that like black and brown people are not necessarily getting into the top universities. Mm-hmm. And this is either stemming from years from early educational systems that if I were to stay at school in Compton, who's to know that I would like got into like Northridge for college?
Yeah.
Who was to know that I would even got into Stanford for graduate school?
So I'm hearing you say it's like a indirect and a direct like racism. So it's like directly affecting you with teachers and with classes, but indirectly in terms of, once again, the environment, in terms of the school. So some schools are more benefited than others and more prestigious or more looked at than others.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's like learning, like even like learning your like history, right? Like in school, they don't teach us like Black history. They teach us, American history or U.S. history. That sort of like, that they teach you like, oh yeah, there were slaves, but they don't tell you much about like Jim Crow that happened afterwards, right? And like even like the new Jim Crow that's happening right now, right?
I hope this will be in the school
going
forward.
Right, honestly. Yeah, right. So there's that, and then like you once you get to college, I think there's like an awakening for a lot of Black people, which is interesting because now you can start to take like ethnic studies, right? There you can learn about like, I think when I was in college, I took like a couple Black studies classes.
I think I took one as well.
Yeah. And I was like I was like me like wakening up like why didn't I learn any of this like in high school, which is good. And I think my school in Northridge is really cool because it's an HSI, a Hispanic Serving Institution. So their Chicano Studies program is really well. So I took like quite a few Chicano Studies classes as well, and just like learning about their struggles as well. And I was like, wow, like we're dealing with a lot of similar issues.
So I think my selfish reason, let me be totally honest and clear, my selfish reason for asking you that question is because my 8-year-old daughter is Black, and with everything going on in the world, for the last couple of weeks, I've been having this burning question inside of me. So she doesn't like school. Like she likes learning about fashion and learning about anything that doesn't involve school. So it's a challenge to get her to sit down and do school, but when she does it, she does well.
Yeah.
It's just when she applies herself. So the question that I kept hearing was like, what if she does bad in a test one day because she didn't apply herself, or maybe she did apply herself, and whether she applied herself or not, what if the teacher just, like, because she was Black, treated her and graded her test poorly compared to the other kids, and she put her at a disadvantage, and she came home and expressed this to me. The question was, like, would you believe your daughter and, like, go stand up for her and talk to the teacher and make it right? Or would you tell your daughter, no, study harder, you need to study harder, you're not studying hard enough? And I think it was an internal conflict, because it was like, if you tell her to study harder, you're kind of, like, going with, like, the side of the racism, you're perpetuating the problem. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, that she doesn't really like to study, so did she study hard enough? And it's like, so the question for me was like, are you racist? Like, are you going to stop it, or are you going to, like, feed into it? So really it comes down to me for connecting and communicating and having those tough conversations when the time comes.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, did you ever experience it in, like, middle school or high school, or more so just in upper academia?
I think all through, like, I think it was very, very clear. Once people of color in high school, like, showed any type of promise, they were immediately taken out of, like, the normal classes and put towards accelerated classes. And I think that's really why, like, my brother and I were, like, more, like, they just automatically just start pushing us towards accelerated classes. Yeah. And out of, like, the normal type classes. And I think that, like, the counselors and all that stuff, like, showed preference to the ones who, like, showed promise, right? And the ones who didn't like really get that much, attention.
I see.
And that's just, like, from me remembering how high school was.
So, and it sounds like a positive form of, like racial, like, profiling in that sense.
Yeah, but in the same sense, I think that, even though most people, like, if someone else, like, say I did not show, like, as much academic promise, then would I have still, like, gotten all the help I did to, like, apply to college, right? And that's sort of the problem, right? Like, even though you're not showing good academic grades right here, in the sense of high school, like, say for your daughter, she's really interested in fashion, right? There should have been, like, counselors that, like, helped them figure out, like, exactly what they wanted, like, exactly what they want to do. Oh, you like fashion? Oh, well, let's look at these, like these fashion schools, right, for these kids. Yeah, right. And let's see what they need to do and what you need to do now in high school to, like, get you to that point. Like, can you continue down this track? Like, what type of GPA do you need? And I don't think like, if people showed interest in, like, trades or in the general things like that, they didn't get as much attention, just from what I can remember talking to people.
So only the people that were more interested in, like, the education and, like, in, like, progressing the ways that the teachers saw best, like, saw fit.
Yeah.
Whereas that's kind of unfortunate, man. That really does suck, because there's so many good jobs out there that don't require education, that just require knowledge and, like, understanding and just human skills.
Exactly.
Literally. So moving on in your academia journey, is that why you decided to start the Black Student Biology Organization? Yeah.
So when I first got to Stanford in graduate school, our graduating class, our, like, incoming class, I would say, that happened in 2014. We accepted the program that I was in was it's an umbrella program, so it covers a large range of bioscience types of things. So it's like neuroscience, immunology, cancer biology, stem cell biology, all that's encompassed in biosciences. The entire biosciences accepted 160 students, right? So it's like it's a competitive getting Stanford.
Yeah.
Of the 160 students, I was the only Black male.
Wow.
Right. Of the 160 students, there were 2 other Black students, right? So if you do the math on that, that's less than 1%, right? If you look at all,
yeah. Wow.
So that was sort of like, wow, okay. Even if I wanted at that point in my first year, even if I wanted to start an organization, it's just not enough of us to do
right.
anything.
So you need, like, more than 3 for a club.
Right. That's just, like, school rules, right? Like, even if, like, they don't let you start a club if you don't have 3 people, right?
Right.
And then so I think that during that first year, there was like actually a lot of things that I participated in and did that first year that I think helped out a lot. With the help of, like, my mentor. So during that first year, during 2014, that was, like, also the year that Michael Brown got shot and killed, right? And that was around like October, November when the video was coming out. And I decided that we needed to have some sort of like protest or some sort of community meeting and like talk about this because it was very bad.
You wanted to raise awareness.
Yeah, I wanted to raise awareness,
yeah.
right? And I remember we were having that sort of like community meeting. And I had when we set it up, we had sent it out like to the entire biosciences, right? So everyone in the biosciences knew that it was going to come. But obviously, people who only really care about these types of issues were going to show up, right? This also includes like allies.
So you weren't expecting a lot of people to show up.
Yeah, the people I knew because I was already talking to a lot of people. I knew which people were going to show up student wise, and also we invited staff and faculty as well.
Got it.
And I remember we were doing this, and the dean of the school actually walked through our like community meeting, like didn't acknowledge it or anything like that, right? So I was like, that made me like very, very, very angry.
Yeah, it sounds very ironic. Like
yeah.
You're over here trying to raise awareness, and he's over here ignoring.
Ignoring why we're hurt. So I think when that happened, I like sent the email to the entire school, including the dean and the dean's office and all that stuff.
Wow.
And then he called me in and like had a meeting and like we discussed some things, and from that he decided that we needed to like create this task force for like diversity. And this task force was filled with like, I was one of the student representatives, and then there was like some medical student representatives. So I was representing graduate students, PhD students, and then there was representatives for MD students, and like staff and faculty to make sure these things happen. Long story short, we came up with like lists of recommendations, and we got a charge from the dean to increase diversity. And so at that point, the next recruiting cycle, we usually accept the same amount of students, so I think it was like somewhere around like 130 or 140. Okay. That next recruiting cycle, we actually had in 2015. It was about like 12 Black students. So we
it's a huge
increase. Yeah. Right? I can't even do the math on the increase of that, right? So
it's over 100%.
Yeah, it's over 100%. So just from there. So when that happened, I was like, okay, well now I'm glad that people are like now listening, and then. Just talking with some of the other like Black students, like we should probably like form a club and like so we can stick together and have each other have a sense of community while we're here in a predominantly white and Asian space.
So it started off with a diversity club foundation. Mm-hmm. So diversity center, and from there it evolved. Like it became noticed, it became recognized, it became impactful, and actually led to more Black students joining the program, which led to a whole new club.
So the club actually came first. So after that recruiting cycle, we started the task force, which was predominantly like non-Black, but it was people who were like who thought it was also an issue and wanted
people
to help.
Who cared.
Yeah, people who cared. And then once we got the Black students here, then we started the club. And the club, so the leaders at the time, I was the vice president of the club, and we had a president. We came together. We said we should probably have like some space on campus, so like. Not just for like the Black students, but it should be for like anybody who considers themselves diverse. Should have a space where we could come together, and that's when we like wrote another letter to the dean with like a list of demands. It was like us and some MD students, and then from that letter, the dean was pretty much agreed that like, oh yeah, we do actually need a space, and he then allowed us to like build the space on campus.
I love that. Off camera, I want to talk to you more about that.
Okay.
How you created that center, because at my job, with everything going on, we seem to have this inclusion and diversity council that nobody knows about. But with everything going on, they like kind of popped up out of nowhere, and they're trying to like put out fires left and right. But if you notice, I said inclusion and diversity because our job is a very, very diverse place already. Yeah. So they feel it's more important to make people feel included. Which goes back to having a center, and I've been trying to tell them like we need a place, like obviously we have break rooms, cafeterias, we need like even if it's a room where after work or before work we can just 5-10 people can go in there at their will and just talk.
Exactly.
That's connect, be included. Literally.
I think a lot of places are like that. They're focused on like the raw number, like okay, we need more diversity here. Let's bring in more women. Let's bring in more people of color. But then once they're there, like they just like okay, go, and not realizing that. They're not like setting up environments where women can thrive or like people of color can thrive, and I think that's like a bigger issue, right? We don't just need to focus on like boosting up the numbers, but actually like supporting people.
So how do you like set up an environment where like Black people or people of color, minority, where they can thrive? How do you?
I think it depends on the situation or then like where you're at in an academic setting. I think having a diversity center is huge, right? Like having a physical space that you can call your own. Like this is our space.
Yeah.
That's huge. The programs that you set up. I think in the academic setting, if you especially like in graduate school, I think mentorship is like really important. I think even with any job, really, you probably want some type of mentor on the job to just like help you navigate your way. So setting up like mentorship programs for students, and like so they can have someone that they can talk to outside of like their own research advisor.
And you guys had set those up in your program?
Yep, and we also set those up.
So this is the second time I heard you talk about mentors. They do have mentors in my job. I keep advocating. So we have WorkWise, which is like physical mentors to make sure that we're working ergonomically. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I keep advocating for like emotional, like mental health mentors that like make sure we have space to journal or pray, meditate, whatever we got to do to make sure we're not stressed out.
Yeah.
But this is like the third time you said mentors. So when did you have your first mentor? How old were you?
Oh, I think I was maybe from when I was born. I would call my dad a mentor. He taught me so many life lessons that I still like use today.
Okay.
That would probably be like my longest.
How about your first mentor, like in the real world? Not to say your dad's not in the real world, but like college or in a job or something.
I got my first mentor in college. I would say, and it was. She was like the director, so I mentioned to you earlier that I got this fellowship or program. I applied to this program,
yes.
And she was like the director of this program that allowed me to start doing research. Her name was Dr. Zavala, and she just just showed me the ropes of like what it means to be in academia, or what does it mean to like be a scientist, and how you navigate the science world. And I learned so much from her. I still talk to her today.
And you just kept getting more mentors over time throughout college.
And then throughout college.
And I think you said now you have like 4 solid mentors.
Yeah, now I have 4 solid mentors that I talk to regularly, and
kind of just reach out if you need a hand or if you need support.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, at what point did it flip for you, and did you feel called to become a mentor?
This happened also in college, so before graduate school. I remember when I got into the program, to this research program, and I started like learning like so much more about science and things that were needed, and I was like, wow, why didn't I know this like before? Why couldn't anyone like tell me this?
Can you give me an example of like something that was needed that you learned about?
So I didn't know that. So for instance, like doing like summer. So in my case, the only people who like get into like top institutions for research in life sciences, they usually have like some type of like summer research in college.
They go above and beyond.
They go above and beyond. Okay. Right. And I mean, since I was running track, like my summers was usually filled with like working out. And so I was like, wow, if I had known that I like needed to do some like extra, like internship somewhere, and I would like drastically increase my chances to, like for graduate school, then I would like definitely would have like tried to do this like a lot sooner than like wait until like the last year of college, right? Which put me behind. But I think since I got the information, I was like, why didn't anyone tell me this before? Like, why didn't I have anyone like stop and tell me like, hey, like what are you trying to do? Yeah. And I think it makes it harder in college because you can get lost in college, but like no one's gonna like ever like stop you and be like, hey, what classes are you taking? What are you trying to do? Like, why is this important?
Unless you go seek it out yourself.
Right?
Which a lot of times we're afraid to do.
Exactly. It's really hard to ask for help, right? You're just like, I'll just try to figure it out. And so at that moment, that's when I was like, wow, I think I need to like be a person that people could come to and talk to like on a random. Off a whim, and I can like give them information. Yeah. Right. And so that's when I like started actively. I started doing. It first started with like athletes because student athletes usually are really tight and stick together a lot. So I started with like student athletes. I would like talk to people on my track team and talk to people on the soccer team, and just like start giving it out. And then they would tell people that they like were taking classes with, and I would like talk to them and like let them know my experiences. And then and then it just started to sort of like snowball. And when I got to graduate school, I think when I found out that I like made it into Stanford, I think people started looking like, wow, like how did you do that?
Yeah.
Right. I thought the same thing. Like, how the fuck did I pull this off? Sorry for cussing.
It's okay. It's be you, man. Be you. No holding back.
And then that's when I was like, then that's when I think a lot more people started reaching out. Like, how did you do this? Like teach me, show me, what do I need to do? And then that's when I took a much more active role in like mentoring like middle school students and high school students and other undergraduates on like what should be your next step now. Like, what are you thinking about? What are you planning to do? What are you interested in?
So you ultimately use your platform to help people get to your level and keep going.
And keep going, yeah. Push it further.
So I noticed that theme in your commencement speech, which congrats, by the way, it was a really good speech.
Thank you.
You said, I think it was towards the end, you said, you know, we've all faced our own battles of resilience, and you said that, one thing I can say is that we've all made it, like you guys all graduated, so congrats, but you said that having made it, having faced our own battles, like it's your job now, or your class's job, to teach what you learned in terms of mental resilience and to kind of give that back to the population.
Yeah. So
what does that look like for you now? I'm sure that takes the mentorship that you're giving to other people. I'm sure it takes it to another level.
Yeah. So it's like, once you completed the PhD, like you now know what it takes to get to this point, right?
Okay.
So then people ask you like, should I do a PhD? Then you can give them a real answer of like what the risks are going to be, how you're going to do, how you're going to feel while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because
how did you feel while you were doing it? Sorry to go off topic.
It's like no, it's fine. There are definitely ups and downs. It challenged me way more like psychologically and mentally than I thought it was. I honestly can say it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Just because it's like a roller coaster of like emotions. You can get very much hot, like very much like so many highs on one day, and like the very next week you can be like at an extreme low, based off of things that are happening either with your experiments, with your advisor, and you trying to like juggle all of that at the same time it took a very like a strong emotional toll on me. It made me start seeing a therapist.
So you like literally experience being stretched and kind of being tied into your advisors, like you said, your teachers, but also like the work. So like the work was stretching you, and then whether the work turned out good or not, successful or not successful, that was what kind of had the effect on you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So it's like you're juggling like in a relationship with someone who wants to see you succeed,
okay, but
also it wants to like push their own career forward, right? So the way graduate school works is that you have like an advisor, a PI, who is like the main person that you like report to, and they're like trying to like build their career and forward their career, and you're helping them forward their career by like you like doing the research in the lab, right? But it also helps your career as well.
Yeah.
So you got someone who like wants to see you succeed, but also is like pushing you to do more. Right,
because it's gonna help them.
Because it's gonna help them, yeah. Because they greatly benefit from it if you succeed, right?
That sounds stressful,
right? And so you know that and you have usually the relationships are like really well. Like it's almost like your I wouldn't say like your best friend, but they have like somewhat to some extent they have like your best interest in mind, because they want to see you succeed, and obviously since you're doing the PhD you want to succeed, right? But they're gonna try to get every ounce of like success out of you, right? And then so when you have someone like pushing you that hard, you start to like really like dive in deep, because you want to succeed and you want to see someone that you like love,
fully committed. Yeah, you're all in.
And then when you have something like that, and the thing that you're fully committed to starts to falter or like not work how you thought it worked, or even like is completely broken, then you get a sense of like, wow, like, is it broken because like I broke it? And if I broke it, how is that affecting my career? How's it affecting my PI's career?
So it's easy to like play the blame game.
Yeah.
And then from the blame game, it's easy to like kind of go into that negative spiral of like all the bad stuff that can happen.
Yeah. And then that happens like one day, and then like the next day, it's like, well, I did, okay, now it's a completely new situation, and you start to succeed with that, and you're like, oh, wow, Like now, okay, I'm good. So you're constantly on like this roller coaster of just like highs and lows, and then it starts to take a toll on you, where you're just like I don't know what I'm feeling right now. That's the point. That's for me. I can't speak for all graduate students, because I can't say that everyone, but I know it's a common thing that there's a huge mental health issue in graduate school.
It's ironic that there's such a huge mental health issue, and that you were in a sense studying like emotional health on your thesis. So were you applying like the stuff that you learned as you were studying, or how are you not tying yourself to the ups and downs essentially?
It's hard, right? It's like kind of like it's hard to sort of practice what you preach in that regard, right? Because you'll find something like, wow, like, you know, so something like I did in undergrad, like you should probably like not be in chaotic environments. It's not like very good for you, right? And you should be people close in your circle that like helps you thrive.
That's
like,
proven by your high school experience. Yeah. Like, you prove that, so.
Right? So you have something like that, but then it's like when you try to practice it in real life, it becomes a much harder thing, just based off of things that are going on. It could be either like a financial issue, or it could be this is the situation that you're just in, right? So say if it's something like, you know, you should probably like not live, you know, in like, you know, in places where people get shot a lot. That's not good for your mental health. But if that's all you can afford, then it's like, okay, well, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, trying to like separate the two is like very hard. For me, it was very hard, and that's why I sort of like was going through like a whirlwind of like emotions, like especially early on in graduate school, where I was like, okay, maybe I should probably just like talk to someone and like try to like, you know, detangle all of this and really get to like the root of like what's happening. And that's when I started seeing a therapist. Yeah.
I see. But at some point, I mean, I'm just thinking to myself, if I was in that position, even with a therapist, if I was still tied into like the wins and the losses, mm-hmm. I think at some point I would burn out. So like at some point, it sounds like you had a therapist, but you had to like detach yourself from like the wins and losses somehow, because otherwise you wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah. I definitely so burnout is also a thing that happens, right? I burnt myself out at one point. I had to leave for a month. So it wasn't like a straight shot, I guess. A month leave is not very bad, but I had to leave.
But then you were aware of it, though.
I was aware of it. I was just like, I can't do anything. I would go in and like I just don't want to do this, right? Like in my mind I was like, I know it's not going to work. I don't want to do it anymore. I convinced myself. And that's when I was like, oh, maybe I should just like take a break and like come back more optimistic, right?
Yeah. But that goes to being able to like separate yourself, because some people that get stuck in burnout, in their mind they know they don't want to do it, but they think it's because they're having these like negative like experiences and these failures, mm-hmm. and they're like, hey, well, I'm gonna just keep going until the good stuff starts to hit. Yeah. But the burnout, it keeps going no matter what.
Exactly.
So you were able to take a step back and be like, hey, regardless of the wins or losses, like I'm not vested right now. Mm-hmm. Like my commitment is not where it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I probably, if I wasn't like talking to someone, I don't know if I would have came to that conclusion on my own. Mm. Yeah.
So back to mentorship then, you said that you help young undergrads kind of see all the extra work required to get to doctorate levels, or actually graduates get doctorate levels. Yeah. And do you kind of share the emotional toil with them too? Oh yeah, I keep it real. Yeah, I don't think even I had mentors who before I got to the graduate program, who had did a PhD, or I had known people who did a PhD, or like were part of like, you know, administration for PhD students, and they don't really tell you like all of like the mental health issues you're gonna go through. They just say it's gonna be tough. That's it. It's a hard thing to do. That's unfortunate. And then when you get there, you start talking to the students. All the students are like, you should see a therapist now. You should start. I remember my first year, people were telling like, yeah, you should get a therapist now. Just get a therapist now. And I was like, I don't know. Like for me, I don't know. I never thought that I like needed to like talk to a therapist to work out my emotions or anything like that. But then I was like, after a while, I was like, wow, this is getting like way too stressful for me to like really handle, and I'm getting to a point where I feel like I'm just like about to break. And usually when people get to that point, they like drop out. There's also a lot of people who drop out. Yeah. And dropping out in the PhD program doesn't sound bad. Like, it sounds bad, but when you drop out of a PhD program, you get a master's degree and they send you on your way. Yeah, you still have a master's degree. So it's a win-win, essentially. So I'm kind of curious. We're talking about mental health, talking about emotions, talking about mentoring. What's next for you? The reason I'm curious is because both of us being minorities, we know men struggle with emotional health. Men struggle owning their anger and just admitting that they have anger. And then minorities, there's a stigma, whether you're Black or Hispanic, even Asian people. There's stigma that you have to see a therapist, or that you just don't know how to manage your emotions, that you're not, and maybe we do know how to manage them, but we're not willing to connect and share our emotions and be open. So do you see yourself ever coming in the future back to your hometown Compton and kind of teaching what you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think me taking a stand, or like me trying to break the stigma, is like saying more outwardly that, yeah, I see a therapist, right? And then it's like, oh, wait, like, you see a therapist? Like, you seem like completely normal, right? Like, why do you see a therapist? It makes it more normal. I'm trying to normalize it.
It is normal. I mean, you gotta talk to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of like where I'm at with that right now. Like, just be like letting it be like more known that I see a therapist, to people that I talk to. But I definitely want, like, when I come back to Compton, or come back to LA, to like have it be something that, like, that's okay with people, and talk to people about that. I think in terms of like the active plans that I have, I don't have anything set in stone of exactly what I want to do. But I know the mentorship is going to be there, right? One of the things that I really want to do is start like a early start program for like middle school students, to like help them, achieve like their science-based goals, like try to like keep them curious. I think most people who are like younger are like really curious, especially when it comes to like science things. You do like a science experiment like in middle school, or like the volcano or something like that you see on TVs. It's like, oh, that's like really cool. Like, yeah, that's science. And so like trying to have something like that, like as an after school program where they can like speak to people about college, or like very early on. I think the first time I started like talking about college was like in high school, and I was like,
So,
like, I had no idea. The first time I heard about a doctorate was like in college, right? So like letting people like starting that early start program.
So give them like one, like almost like a generation ahead. Like the high schoolers learn about it in middle school, the middle schoolers learn about elementary, and then the college learn about it in high school.
Exactly.
Makes sense. I wanted to talk about your summer camp. So you help middle schoolers. You want to help middle schoolers. That's the goal. What's the summer camp? What age is that going to be?
I think it could be any age. I think it will be like from 6th grade to like 12th grade. Keep it open.
Got it.
That large of a range.
Let's pause in the summer camp. That other thought just came back.
Okay.
I had a brain fart. So I was essentially going to say what I heard you saying in terms of helping middle schoolers was bringing like a diversity center to the middle schools. That's kind of like the vision I was seeing as you were talking.
I wouldn't say, I think it would be extreme. I don't know. It would be hard to like establish on school, but I want to have like a place, that people can come to like after school, and maybe
like a nonprofit or something.
Yeah, something like a nonprofit, and it would be completely free.
Yeah,
right? It would be like after school care, and then they would just go there. It doesn't matter what district you go to school in, right? None of that matters, right?
Open to just open. Like the people that fit that population.
Yeah, exactly. Who wants to learn? Who wants to learn about like science? And for people, for like for like Black and brown people, usually their parents are like working, so it's like hard for them to like do stuff after school or try to pick them up. So that would be like something perfect where even if they're like not so science inclined when they first start, then we can see what they are curious about, right?
So a safe space to them that allows them to explore freely.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I'm noticing a lot of your themes that we're talking about is the environment. Like, so, there's the concept of nature and nurture. And it sounds like with what you learned with neurosciences, a lot on the nature side. So you just have to put yourself in the right environment, put yourself around the right people. That's why we have mentors. So for me, I'm in this Wake Up Warrior community, this mastermind. I'm in like 2 or 3 other communities and masterminds. I have my own community around the podcast. Shout out to the Wonders and friends. Thanks, guys, for supporting. But yeah, that's what I've had to do is put myself in safe containers around people that I trust. And I find, though, being in those areas is when the vulnerability really comes out. Like I wasn't able to be honest and vulnerable with myself or with anyone until I was in those safe spaces and started seeing other people doing it.
That's like that's the huge importance. That's why I wanted to like start the diversity center on Stanford's campus. But I think that's like a huge thing. You have to create these spaces for people, especially like people in our communities who don't want to like seek out help or anything like that, or don't want to. I think that.
I think also besides creating it, we have to like normalize it. Like you said, normalize therapy, normalize talking, normalize mentorship. Like some people don't even believe in having coaches or mentors.
Yeah,
so all that should be totally normalized, and then it'll drive people to that space and then make them also interact within the space.
Exactly. Yeah.
So before we go to the summer camp, the science camp, right? Okay, before we go to that, just a fun question. When you were talking about science projects in middle school, what was your middle school science project?
I remember this. I took a potato and I grew some stuff out of the potato. I don't remember. I remember putting toothpicks in a potato and like setting it in water and like watching stuff grow out of it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And like this, and I like how you do the tripods. I remember doing that, and like I remember like just talking about like potato growth on it.
I would not have guessed that at all, to be honest. That's funny.
I think the funny thing is that like I hated science. Like I really hated science. Like all through middle school, all through high school, and even like through the first parts of like college, I was like not a science fan at all. But then like going through college and like learning more and more, and like I just like evolved as a person and like getting more and more interested about one question. I was always interested in like human behavior, and like just like the more I learned about it, the more I just like sort of like dove deeper into like, oh, this is like really cool. The brain is really interesting. How does it work?
Yeah. So you weren't into science, but you're into the brain, and the brain would just like opened you into science.
Yeah, and I think that I wish that I like had some sort of like head start with that, right? Like maybe why didn't I like learn more about the brain when I was in middle school, or learn like I don't know.
They never did any brain science.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, that's what your diversity center could be for your kids. Exactly. So I think my science project was an electro bridge.
An electro bridge?
Yeah, so I took the concept of like the Golden Gate Bridge and how it's always backed up with traffic, and then to put a giant freaking conveyor belt on the bridge that the cars turn off when they get on the bridge, and to save gas, to save electricity, power, whatever, and then it just pulls them through the bridge slowly, like automatically.
Nice. It cuts down on traffic, all that stuff, right? People aren't going to get in accidents.
Exactly.
All that stuff.
So nice. It looked cool in the model, but then when you had to come up with a giant conveyor belt, it didn't seem realistic. So summer camp. This kind of was random. We were supposed to have our podcast interview next week or in a couple of days, and then you told me that you just kind of took on a summer camp. And I was excited for you because it follows along the path of what you want to do, mentorship, right? So tell me about it. What are you going to be doing? So
this summer camp, the name of the company is Apogee Education. They have these neuro camps for 6th through 11th grade. And so they come to Stanford for 3 weeks. Is it? Yeah, 3 weeks. And we have classes Monday through Friday. And usually, so I'm the program manager. So I'm like helping teachers. I'm also a teacher with it, so I teach a few lessons. But basically, they learn from like the very beginnings of what is the brain, what are neurons, what are the cells that make up the brain, all the way up to like how the brain works and different diseases and how do we study the brain. So fMRI scans. So they get to like visit some labs. They get to visit some like imaging facilities, so they get to see fMRI. One of them or two of them get to like get a scan of their brain, and we give them a picture of their brain. Yeah. But basically just like to introduce neuroscience to them, to teach them more neuroscience concepts, right? Starting at 6th grade, right? So then that way, if people, the ones that are like more interested in neuroscience, they can start to get a head start, like in high school or like in early college, like to be more focused on like, this is what I want to do. And hopefully that like pushes them to, go to neuroscience PhD programs, or become neurologists or doctors, something like that. Yeah.
And what's what we need more doctors, more neurologists.
Exactly.
I have this burning feeling as I'm talking to you, like there's gonna be a book coming out from you, a book that just normalizes like emotional intelligence for like minorities, for men, a book that normalizes like the study of science for like for kids.
Yeah.
A book that just kind of like all the stuff that we talked about that just makes it seem okay, but also educates and also like is a very vulnerable book that
that lays out my life and everything that I've been through.
Yeah,
That's an interesting concept. Maybe I should think about it.
Could be wrong, but that's what I'm sensing, man. Cool. So I think we're wrapping up here. So far we have, in terms of mental health, some tools. We have just being able to step back and see the big picture, whether it's talking to our mentor, whether it's talking to a psychotherapist, whether it's, for me, I journal, whether it's journaling, just finding a way to separate the facts and separate yourself from the feelings and from the goals, essentially, because we don't always hit our goals.
Yeah.
So we have that. And then I think you said sports was huge for you in terms of decompressing and getting stress out. Is any other tools that you want to throw in as we wrap up? Any other techniques that you that experimented with, or colleagues might have shared with you? I don't know that they did.
Yeah, a lot of. So one of the things, and I think this helped me out a lot. One of the things, I got this my second year of graduate school. Someone told me this was to take all of the good things that has happened to them throughout life, or as you're going through life, right? Whether that be like emails sent to you, acceptance letters, all that stuff. So I started to do that as well. So what I do is it's like a little folder that I keep on my computer. If I get like a thank you note from one of my like mentees that I like helped, or if I get like I regularly apply for like fellowships and grants. If I get the acceptance for the grant, I have gotten grants and stuff, so I put those acceptance letters in there. And like anything, pictures that I like took from like a very happy day.
What do you title this folder?
It's just like a gratitude folder. It's like gratitude.
Yeah. So it's just like a positive folder, and when you're having a rough day, you just kind of flip through that.
You open it up, and then you can see it, and it's like, oh wow, like I am, like it makes your heart smile. Like oh, I forgot, like I got this grant.
It's like little bits of sweetness.
Yeah.
Do you know who David Goggins is?
David Goggins? No, I don't think I've heard of him.
You don't know who David Goggins is? Dude, what the heck? His book is called You Can't Hurt Me.
You Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah,
okay.
He's crazy. He set the world record for most pull-ups in 24 hours. It was like 5,000 something.
Oh, dang.
He got beat, but he set it for a while.
For a while, yeah.
And then he does tons of like 200-mile runs, 100-mile runs. He's just into like, I think he did this one 24-hour run on not even a 1 mile track, on like a 0.2 mile like course, like a loop.
Really?
And he just sat there and ran for 24 hours straight.
Oh gosh.
And he ended up like shitting his pants, and like it's crazy, dude. But he's very inspirational, very motivational. And what he talks about is this concept of the cookie jar. So essentially it sounds like you have a cookie jar on your laptop, but basically every time he completes these runs, these amazing feats, growing up he got called like nigger a lot, and he got picked on a lot. And he would just take all of his positive moments in life. There's one time where he like punched his dad, and like his dad and his relation was so bad that was a positive moment. And this is all from his book. And he would just throw these in his cookie jar, like mental cookie jar. Yeah. And then when he was having a rough day or a bad day, he would just like kind of like open up his cookie jar. But for him, it wasn't more so when he was having a rough day. It was when he was like at his limit, because he liked to push himself to his limit. So when he was on that last like lap of the race, when he was like couldn't walk anymore during exercise, like he just goes to the cookie jar. He's like, no, you did this. He was a Navy SEAL. He's like, no, you did this, you did that. And that's kind of the same thing for college, like mentally.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like that. I'm gonna take that for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you can apply it to like all like your entire life, right? Like anything,
Because I have a bunch of folders of like pictures, and like I have a school folder, but it's all the good stuff is like so spread out. Yeah. I think if I had all the good stuff in one place, consolidated, it's like it's abundance. Exactly. And that's what we want, is abundance. Dude, that's powerful. Well, thank you for that. So the last question as we wrap up, man. I do ask this question to all of my interviewees. So what is your personal definition of the word wonder? When I hear that, I always think of curiosity, right? And my personal definition of it will probably be to stay curious, even in the dark, when people are shutting you down. I think that's one of the things that helped me when in college, that I was just like curious enough to like go check out this program, curious enough to like dive deeper into brain and behavior. And it sort of, there was a trickle effect that like ultimately led me to, getting into Stanford. So I would say like
Curiosity.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Curiosity, like that natural, like childlike curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say childlike, I think of it more because curiosity to me means like wondering.
Mm-hmm.
We might get lost in it and not pursue like what we were thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
But the childlikeness is like, well, children don't care. They just do it. Like they just go.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't be afraid to take action, like on that wonder, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely like one of the things that keeps me so attracted to doing science is that you get to repeatedly like keep this wonder and ask those questions, right? So like for me, for asking about the brain, I started off like, why do people think this way? Why do people behave this way? And you can just like you can like actually like go in and like start to like design experiments to like test it and like see if you can find an answer to all that stuff. It kind of reminds me of like I have like nieces and nephews and they like ask tons of questions like, why is the sky blue? You always say like, why is the grass green? Why,
Yeah.
why does this car look like that? Why are the wheels big like that? Or why is it so
why?
Yeah. Right. And so with that, what sort of like also I know like science has its ups and downs for me, but it's like knowing that I can like have that like in my pocket where I can just like ask these questions whenever I want and go in and like do it. That's like the wonder that like having that wonder like brings me joy and like keeps pushing me to do the things that I want to do. Yeah.
Got it. So science is like kind of puts an action behind your wonder for you. It
Exactly.
allows you to like to test it. It allows you to like. So my last podcast episode I did with an interview,
Mm-hmm.
I just am releasing it tomorrow on Monday. It's going to be titled "How to See What You Can't." How to see the impossible and make it possible. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like what you do with science, right?
Yeah.
Like you ask a question that you can't really see, something impossible,
Mm-hmm.
and then you test to figure out how to make it possible.
Yeah. You bring it to light. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. And I like to call it seeing in the dark.
Seeing in the dark. Yeah, I like that.
Beautiful, man. With that, I think we're done. I'm glad you were here, Tawaun. It was a great interview. Any last words you want to leave for young, let's be specific, young minority men in college who don't really know what they're missing?
I would say stick with it. Stay steadfast. It's going to be tough, but as long as you stay focused, you can do it. And I also want to reach out and provide my support to anyone who's listening to this. I'm willing to help anyone who wants to, explore the idea of going to graduate school or explore the idea of going into science or moving into science. Like I'm open. I'm an open book for anyone.
You guys heard it. So Tawaun is willing to lend you a hand. Mm-hmm. He is offering you mentorship, guys. Mentorship is huge these days. Where can they find you if they want to take you up on this offer?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can shoot me an email. It's like my name @gmail.com.
How do you spell your name?
Tawaun.
Tawaun Lucas.
Lucas. So short is Tawaun at Stanford.edu. That would probably be the quickest way. I answered that one so quickly. Send it to my personal one. That's also okay. TawaunL@gmail.com.
Tawaun L or Lucas?
Tawaun L.
Tawaun L. Okay, I'm going to put it in the show notes, guys, so don't worry. But definitely take Tawaun up on his offer. Mm-hmm. And we'll catch you guys next week. Have a wonderful rest of the day. All right, everyone. So there you have it. That was the interview with Tawaun Lucas. Actually, Dr. Tawaun to be exact. If you guys want to learn more about Tawaun, I'll put everything in the show notes. If you want to get a hold of him, it's in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, if you found it to be valuable, I ask that you either subscribe on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, that you drop a comment on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, or you share this with a friend on social media, or even just leave a review. Those are all truly valuable ways to help spread the gift of wonder to the people who need wonder the most. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll definitely look forward to another episode coming up here shortly on Wake Up with Wonder. Don't forget, have a wonderful day.